Let's cross to Fikile Maseko, our reporter, for a preview of that. Fikile, a lot of issues on the go. What are we expecting from the NWC today?
Well, Francis, we anticipate that the Secretary General of the ANC, Fikile Mbalula, will speak extensively on some of the discussions they held at the ordinary National Working Committee meeting that took place on Monday afternoon. At the top of their agenda is the upcoming NEC meeting, which will take place at the end of this month, next week, whilst also the ANC Youth League National Congress will be sitting at Nasrec Expo Center, where they are anticipating to elect new leaders of the league. They've also released their discussion documents. And also they will be deliberating on the economic trajectory of the country, on the outcomes of the first quarter of the GDP announcements that were announced by the Statistician General, and also speaking on matters pertaining to the reports that they will be receiving from the Integrity Commission of the party. Those reports will be from Digital Vibes, which implicated Dr. Zwelithini Mkhize. They'll also get a report coming from the Phala shenanigans of President Cyril Ramaphosa in the outcomes of that Section 89 report and the various investigations that were being done by the ANC's Integrity Commission. So it's going to be a jam-packed National Executive Committee of the African National Congress that is anticipated to take place at the end of this month. You know that those NEC meetings take place on a quarterly basis throughout the year.
Will we hear anything about what you were recently involved in, unfortunately stuck on that plane in Poland, logistical nightmare, questions being asked about what officials did or didn't do to put the President's Protection Service in that position as well. Is the ANC expected to comment at all?
The ANC may comment on that particular matter, knowing that the President of the African National Congress and President of the country would have given an overview and a report back to the ANC's officials on his trip to Ukraine to meet President Zelensky, and also on his trip to Russia to meet President Vladimir Putin, and also on the bilateral meeting that President Ramaphosa, as head of state, had with President Vladimir Putin. And remember that after the meeting with the African heads of state on Russia and Ukraine of the war, President Ramaphosa held his own bilateral meeting with President Putin, outlining the preparations going towards the BRICS summit, which is meant to take place in South Africa in August, and also on the issue of the warrant of arrest that has been issued by the International Criminal Court, and how the South African government is going to try and maneuver in a manner that allows Vladimir Putin, the president of Russian Federation, to make his way to South Africa in order for South Africa not to be able to arrest him. As you know, that the government has been pretty vocal in saying that they cannot simply just disregard the law and not perform their functions of being signatories of the Rome Statute, and that they would have to arrest President Vladimir Putin if he comes to the country. But there was an interministerial committee team set up of ministers by President Ramaphosa, which is led by Deputy President Paul Shipokosa Mashatile, looking in this matter on how South Africa can avoid arresting President Vladimir Putin. There have been a number of suggestions on the table, such as taking the BRICS summit to Beijing in China. You'd know that over the past month, President Ramaphosa has pretty much on a weekly basis been engaged in discussions with President Vladimir Putin and engaged in discussions with President Xi Jinping of China. Just as a matter of fact, the Secretary General of the African National Congress, along with all provincial secretaries, and also David Makura, have been on a working visit trip to China for about 2 weeks, where they were there engaging with the Chinese and engaging with the Chinese Communist Party. That will also be given overview in this NWC briefing by the Secretary General, as they had briefed the ANC officials and the National Working Committee on their working visit to China. But the key issue is the warrant of arrest and how the ANC plans and the government plans to maneuver around it in order to be able to host a successful BRICS summit. President Zelensky and the ministers of foreign affairs in Ukraine have openly said that if South Africa is a law-abiding citizen and a respecting nation of its own laws and the laws of the Rome Statute as being a signatory, they will perform their functions and arrest President Putin. But you'd know the strong diplomatic ties between South Africa and the Russian Federation, and also with the recent trip that the president has taken, and with us going to Poland and being stuck in a plane in Poland for 27 hours on various suspicions and various allegations with the Polish government wanting to open up the cargo boxes that South Africa had in the aircraft belonging to the SANDF, belonging to the Presidential Protection Services. You've had allegations through Lady R, which was a ship from Russia that docked in the Western Cape with the American ambassador, alleging that South Africa was funding and assisting Russia with arms. So those matters of geopolitics will also be some of the issues that the Secretary General of the African National Congress, Fikile Mbalula, will speak about on the outcomes of the National Working Committee of the African National Congress. But more importantly as well, as you heard the Minister in the Presidency, Kumbuzo Ntaveni, speaking of how South Africa has procured 1,000 megawatts of electricity from Mozambique that will be pushed to the South African grid. The governing party, through its national chairperson and the Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy, Gwede Samson Mantashe, has been very vocal that if the government does not resolve the issue of electricity and the shortage of it, it will become a factor in next year's general election. Hence, you see the minister in the presidency and the minister responsible for electricity, Dr. Hosianto Ramahupa, who is currently in China engaging with the Chinese government on how they can assist South Africa in eradicating load shedding. He is accompanied by the Deputy Minister of Public Works as well in that working visit to China.
Thank you for that overview, Samkele. A good point. The electricity crisis, huge for the country and for the ANC going into elections next year. And we will take you live to that National Working Committee briefing from the ANC when it gets underway. All right, the ANC Secretary General, Fikile Mbalula, is talking following the National Working Committee of the party recently. Let's cross live to Lethuli House for that.
This press briefing is to inform the nation of the outcomes of the National Working Committee meeting and the way forward in relation to matters deliberated upon, their impact on the ANC, the country, and the globe. On Russia-Ukraine peace mission, the National Working Committee reaffirmed the 55th National Conference resolution to initiate and join any strategic initiatives that helps in building a better Africa and a better world. In the current global circumstances, this position means a total commitment to the resolution of all international disputes through dialogue and not arms. Accordingly, the NWC discussed the latest developments around the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict. The NWC reaffirmed the ANC's anti-war position and our commitment to the right of nations to determine their own internal affairs. This necessarily means that we are committed to the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity as articulated in the United Nations Charter. Furthermore, the National Working Committee committed the ANC to continue mobilizing directly as a party and through initiatives of government for a global peace plan that can end the Russia-Ukraine conflict. In the immediate, all efforts must be directed towards convincing all protagonists in the war to agree to a cessation of hostilities. In the coming week, the ANC will convene a dialogue on the Russia-Ukraine conflict as part of this effort to build broad support for our approach. The dialogue for us, it is important not only to clarify our stance, but at the same time to use it as a platform for mobilization for peace. The NWC noted and deliberated upon the judgment of the Johannesburg High Court in the matter between the DA and the ANC. The judgment is in dismissal of the ANC's application for leave to appeal on an earlier judgment of 2nd February 2023, where the applicant successfully sought an order for access to information, directing the ANC to provide all the information and records sought by the applicant within 5 court days and an order to cost. Pursuant to the judgment of 2nd February 2023, the ANC lodged an application for leave to appeal, after which the court dismissed with cost on the 13th of June 2023 on the basis of absence of reasonable prospects of success. The implication of this judgment is that the ANC must within 5 days comply with the judgment of the 2nd February 2023, and we have accordingly, as of yesterday, 21st June 2023, petitioned the Supreme Court of Appeal. Our view is that Judge Willem Weppenaar has erred in his application of law, and we are therefore confident that a higher court might come to a different conclusion on the matter. The ANC will use available legal avenues and recourse to the courts to preserve its information, which is the property of the ANC, to the exclusion of any other party. The ANC reiterates its respect of the outcomes of the courts and their independence, including due process of the law. Buoying on the public protector, the ANC remains the custodian of the rule of law and only democratic platform that upholds our constitutional values, are arbiters of any social, economic, and political differences. Respect for the rule of law is non-negotiable. For this reason, the ANC condemned in the strongest terms the booing of the public protector, whose office is critical as per a constitutional mandate in strengthening our democracy and the rule of law. We make this clarion call for the respect of the public protector and the office she occupies at all times as she discharges her duties. BRICS political parties dialogue. The NWC considered a report on the BRICS political parties dialogue to build international solidarity networks through party-to-party relations with its historical partners, and to forge new relationships with newly formed progressive forces. We must strengthen party-to-party and multi-party relations on our continent to turn consensus into concrete action. The dialogue will be held at Beachwood Hotel from 18 to 20 July 2023 under the theme BRICS and Africa, Partnership for Mutually Accelerated Growth, Sustainable Development and Inclusive Multilateralism. This is in line with the assertion by the President on the occasion of January 8 statement of 2023. I quote, that the ANC must rebuild international solidarity networks through party-to-party relations with its historical partners and build new relationships with newly formed progressive forces. We must strengthen party-to-party and multi-party relations on our continent to turn consensus into concrete solutions, close quote. The 2023 BRICS political parties dialogue will deliberate on reforming and strengthening mechanisms for inclusive multilateralism, resolving conflicts through dialogue and negotiations, ways and means to strengthen big BRICS, including the new development bank and alternate international payment systems, and contribute to the establishment of criteria for BRICS expansion and just development relationships with Africa, address the challenges of climate change and promote environmental protection. Political parties will also be called on to play catalytic roles in accelerating growth and sustainable development through global partnerships and ensuring global peace and security, a prerequisite for achieving the sustainable development goals. The BRICS Summit is a cardinal pillar of the 2023 January statement on creating a better Africa and a better world. This forum will bring together party leaders and representatives of political parties across the world. It is envisaged that the BRICS political parties plus dialogue will result in focused discussions and practical strategies and tactics developed for implementation. On economic challenges, the Working Committee noted the continued high inflation and increased interest rates across the globe. The NWC reiterated the importance of accelerating national transformation in the context of growing the economy and creating conditions enabling youth employment. The NWC further emphasized that all ANC structures must be seized with optimal implementation of service delivery programs, working in conjunction with municipalities and the private sector. The Working Committee noted the reprieve on load shedding the previous week and expressed confidence that it is possible to reverse the onset of load shedding by increasing the energy availability factor of ESCOM in the immediate as we seek to implement long-term sustainable plans on baseload electricity supply and thereby ensure national energy security. As recently reported by Statistics South Africa, I quote, annual consumer inflation slowed to 6.8% in April from 7.1% in March. This is the lowest reading since May 2022, when the rate was 6.5%, close quote. And also that, I quote, annual inflation for food and non-alcoholic beverages is to 13.9% in April from 14.0% in March, close quote. We also noted that on matters impacting the population at large, particularly the working class, was that, I quote, transport recorded its successive month of disinflation in April, softening to 7.6%. This was mainly due to the annual rate for fuel easing to 5.0%, the lowest reading since March 2021 of 2.4%. Close quote. We believe that the economy is showing some improvement and do hope that as government and the private sector play their respective roles, the economic situation has the potential to improve further going into the future. Organizational matters, upcoming ANC Youth League, National Congress, ANC Women's League, and ANC Veterans League national conferences. The Working Committee noted the upcoming National Congress of the Youth League, the Women's League, and the Veterans League. These conferences are important catalysts towards addressing inequality, job creation, women and youth empowerment. The debilitating scourge of gender-based violence, femicide, and persecution of LGBTQI+ community, and other programs of these important and vulnerable sectors of the society. They will very importantly strengthen the organizational machineries and programs of the respective leagues. The NWC noted the advanced preparatory processes towards the ANC Women's League, Youth League, and Veterans League conferences, and that the Women's League National Conference has been scheduled for the dates of 14 to 16 July 2023 at Nasrec Expo. The Youth League National Congress, scheduled from 13 June to 4 July 2023, under the theme Program of Action for Economic Freedom and Social Change, now and not later. The Veterans League National Conference is scheduled for July 2023. The NWC noted that the Veterans League convened a Lekgotla on the 15th to 16 April 2023 for the acceleration of this preparation. 40th anniversary celebrations of the formation of the United Democratic Front, UDF. The NWC reaffirms the commitment of the ANC to support the celebrations of the 40th anniversary of the United Democratic Front. In this regard, the NWC calls on all structures of the organization and the broader mass democratic movement to lend their support to the preparations for the celebrations across the country. The UDF played a significant role in the fight against apartheid. To this end, tomorrow on Friday, we will meet with Comrade Popo Molefe and the team of UDF 40 to receive a full briefing on the preparations for the celebrations of the 40th anniversary of the United Democratic Front. 110th anniversary of the 1913 Natives Land Act. The NWC noted the 110th anniversary of the 1913 Natives Land Act and calls on government to accelerate land reform to reflect the country's racial, gender, and class demographics as espoused in the constitutional injunction on healing the division of the past. As we reflect on the performance of the ANC in relation to its manifesto, part of that work will include the program of land redistribution, how far we have gone, what are the obstacles, and what still needs to be done going forward. The National Youth Day celebrations were noted as a great success, which emphasized on skills development, youth entrepreneurship, and enabling employment creation, with government being responsive to this challenge of youth employment in the country, as we have seen throughout the country in different provinces, provincial governments responding to the question of youth employment. Expulsion of former ANC Secretary General Ace Magashule. The expulsion of former Secretary General E.S. Magashule was confirmed, regrettably, following his failure to submit representation on reasons why he should not be expelled from the ANC after the expiry of a stipulated period of 7 days duly communicated to him. The ANC derives no joy in the expulsion of any member, hence Comrade Ace was given time to mitigate against the recommended verdict of his expulsion. And in this regard, the ANC is duty-bound to uphold its integrity and internal organizational disciplinary processes. Mayoral candidates. Deployment of mayors was noted, with recommended candidates confirmed as follows: from Kangala District Municipality, Comrade Thomas Ngwenya was confirmed as ANC candidate mayor. For Emalahleni Local Municipality, Comrade Leah Mabuza was confirmed as ANC candidate mayor. On allegations against ANC MPs, the NWC noted the allegations made by the suspended public protector, Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane, regarding ANC members of parliament, Comrade Phemema Jodina, the chief whip, Comrade Kubutile Kyanji, the chairperson of the Section 194 inquiry, and the late Comrade Tina Jumat Peterson. The ANC condemns and distances itself from any attempt to undermine processes conducted in terms of the Constitution and the laws of the Republic, for which it waged a determined struggle in which many sacrificed life and limb and liberty. Accordingly, the ANC views the recordings purporting to reflect statements by the late Comrade Jomat Peterson with concern. Regrettably, she is no longer in a position to explain or account for the statements attributed to her. The ANC is also concerned that the reputations of the chief whip and the chairperson of the inquiry are being subjected to attacks on the basis of hearsay evidence, devoid of any credible and independent corroboration. In this regard, the NWC reaffirms its confidence in their leadership and support their full cooperation with the Parliamentary Ethics Committee as well as internal ANC processes. Condolences, the NWC tipped its revolutionary banner in honor of the memory of Comrade Tina Jomat Peterson, Comrade Amos and Betty Kumede, Comrade Sillo Mudibedi, and Comrade Zoliswa Funiselo. We convey our deepest condolences to their loved ones, and we wish as well a speedy recovery to the Premier of Northwest Province. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, SG. At this point in time, I'd like to then invite any questions from yourselves, colleagues. I'm going to start to my left. Over to you, my brother, and let's also continually introduce ourselves.
Good afternoon. I'm Diana from Network 24.
Sorry, from?
Network 24.
Yes, you mentioned something about the staff of the presentation on since what did that entail? And then, what is the latest regarding the ANC? You said you're going to serve papers on the former ISCOM CEO under the director. Did you serve the papers to him? What's the latest there? Yeah, that's over now.
Thank you very much. Dewa?
Good afternoon. My name is Dewa with the SABC. SG, you said in as much as you respect the courts and the independence of the judiciary, you don't agree with the judgment. Do you think maybe the court, there was a judicial overreach on this judgment? I mean, looking at the cadre deployment as an internal political party program to dispatch its members to different institutions. Do you think the court didn't just err, but there was a judicial overreach on that? And the case on H. Mahashule, is this thing done and dusted? Are you likely going to give him a hearing if he comes and said maybe he was late to make those presentations as was expected? I think for now, maybe finally on the BRICS and President Putin coming to South Africa. And now that the indictment has been indicted by the ICC, I know that you spoke a lot about this. But do you think in hindsight, the ANC feels that maybe you should have abandoned the ICC? Maybe at some point there was a discussion about that.
Thank you very much. I want to just take one last hand, and then I will turn to the SG. Samkelo?
Thank you. Samkelo Maselo, the South African Broadcasting Corporation. Mr. Mbalula, on the issue of the ICC, President Ramaphosa held a bilateral meeting after the meeting of African heads of state and President Putin. Did the President take the NWC into confidence on the deliberations or the ANC officials first on Monday on his deliberations one-on-one with President Putin? What was the resolution, particularly knowing that there is the upcoming BRICS summit in South Africa? Is there any clear indication as yet on what the governing party will decide on this matter? Then lastly, has he centralized communication on Putin to his office only here in Treaty House and in the union buildings? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see, so shall we treat that as the first segment, and then let me turn to the SG.
I didn't get all the questions of News 24.
No,
News 24.
no,
Network and News 24 is two different things. Oh, I thought Network is News 24. So Network, I didn't get all your questions. I only got you when you talk about the orator.
Okay. You also you said that the Minister of Home Affairs gave a presentation regarding citizenship. What did that entail?
Okay, the minister briefed us on issues of citizenship, immigration, and refugees issues, and then there is a white paper process that is being canvassed broadly, and we just got a briefing on snippets of that in terms of what it entails, and it must go to cabinet, and cabinet must endorse that, and then as well as public will reflect on it. So we then agreed largely with the spirit of that white paper process, and to that extent we urge the minister to move with speed for the implementation of that white paper process, but most importantly to work very hard in the context of the law to expedite processes that will arrest the continued influx of illegal immigrants in our country. Now, there is a definition of immigration and refugees. And refugees are people that come to your country for various reasons, including political asylum and so on. But that is totally different from people who come to your country illegally in numbers like we have seen. And as a result of porous borders, and that to come to South Africa is easy, more than any other country in the world. So that is why we applaud the work of the border management, but that on its own is not enough. So we need to deal with this question of immigration in protection of the citizens, including issues of employment and the kind of work opportunities that will be preserved for South Africans in our country. On the radar, like I briefed, we will give an update on that matter. The radar has been traced to be in Germany, in the city of Hamburg. The court in Pretoria have ruled in our favor that we must serve him the papers, which we have done, for a person like him who is a South African but not residing in the country. So there's a tedious process in relation to this, because it has got to go through the South African embassy, which must then serve the papers to him. And to this point, that process has started, and we just need to get the details of it in terms of the advice we will get from our lawyers. But that has been done. With regard to the judgment, Ntebu, on the deployment, we believe that Judge Vepenar have erred in law, and that is why we're taking up the matter. Politically, is this an overreach? Well, I will reserve that pronouncement up until the process of the law has been exhausted. But I can tell you that we defend our policy on cadre deployment. Cadre deployment policy of the ANC is what political parties that come into power world over exercise to deploy strategically people who execute the mandate of implementing the manifesto of the political party that has won an election. The DA does so in Cape Town. They dismissed Ubabum Kok